Well, hello! Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' books. This is going to be a shorter recent wrap-up because I only have 2 books to talk about because I did my math incorrectly and I talked about 4 books in the one I filmed yesterday. I meant to do 3 and 3. Here we are. The first book was an audiobook that I listened to from the library through the Libby app. And the book is Prison by Any Other Name by Maya Schenwar and Victoria Law. The subtitle is The Harmful Consequences of Popular Reforms. So I've heard of prison reform before, but this year I became more interested in it. My first real introduction to the concept was reading The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and talks about just kind of our prison industrial complex and over-criminalization of Black and brown communities specifically, but over-criminalization in general, just of everyone. And that book didn't delve super, from what my memory serves me, it didn't delve super deep into prison abolition or anything like that. It was more just presenting information about what our current system looks like and the ways in which it doesn't actually work for the people at all, and the over-criminalization, like I said. It has been a couple years since I read that. But this one is by people who are part of the prison industrial complex abolition movement. And they basically are presenting the argument that prison reform doesn't actually help and doesn't actually change anything. That various reforms that get brought up further perpetuate keeping people in cages, essentially, in various ways. The kind of brief bio is a crucial indictment of widely embraced alternatives to incarceration that exposes how many of these new approaches actually widen the net of punishment and surveillance. So they talk about house arrest and parole and probation and mental health facilities as an alternative to prison for people who have committed crimes. Also talks about what am I trying to say? Diverting programs, like programs to divert like prostitution, etc. That all these things don't actually help to reform anyone, that they don't actually help to rehabilitate anyone. They just keep people in the system. A good example, quick example, is probation, and how there's all these fees that come along with this. So someone might be in prison, or maybe they don't even get sentenced to prison, they just get sentenced to some probation, but there's all these fees, they have to pay monthly fees, they have to check in all the time, they might not have adequate transportation, so maybe they miss a probation appointment because they couldn't get there and they didn't have money for bus fare or whatever the case may be, and then they get arrested and go to jail. Or they can't pay their fees and they get so much money built up, backed up in these fees, and then they get arrested and they go to prison anyway. And then they get out of prison and then they're on parole and they have a similar thing and they can't get a job because now they're felons, or now they have a record even if it's not a felony, and can't get a job, don't have a job, but have these fees piling up, get arrested because they can't pay the fees, go back to prison. And just how all these things create cycles or continue cycles and don't actually do much to rehabilitate people and to help people build their lives back up. It just creates more and more churning for the prison industrial complex. I thought it was really interesting. I appreciated learning some more about it. I'm still learning more about this movement to determine how I feel about all of the nuances of it, but I'm appreciating that it's kind of teaching me, it's making me realize how deeply ingrained it is in our brains to, like, that prison is just a thing and should always be a thing. And like it's hard to imagine a world without prisons. Like, try to think, like, your brain probably has a block that's like, no, we need prison, right? And they're arguing that we don't necessarily need prison. And I appreciated that this book, because I've learned a little bit about this prior and read some articles and different things. And I kind of always have a question of, like, I fully agree that we need to decriminalize so many things. Drug offenses, prostitution, homelessness. Like, why the fuck is it a crime to be homeless and existing in a homeless state? Like that, like in a state of homelessness, not like actually a United States state. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't that just doesn't make sense to me. Like logically. But I mean, the argument is that the system is working how it was set up to work, right? Just getting these people, like basically just putting people away. Like, oh, we don't want to, you're a, unsavory person. We don't want to see you. Let's put you away somewhere. And I fully agree with all of that. I think many things should be decriminalized. But then my question is always, human nature, there's always going to be murder. There's probably always going to be some level of sexual assault. I think it would take a long-ass time to change our society in that regard, where that's not such a prevalent problem. Child sexual assault, child molestation, these like really egregious things. And I'm not talking murder in like self-defense. I'm talking just like, I felt like murdering people, or I brought a gun into my school and just started shooting everybody. Shit like that, right? I'm always like, but what do we do with those people? And and then also too, like, okay, so say we have programs set up to try to help these people and actually rehabilitate them, deal with maybe the mental health things they have going on, deal with trauma they have that's making them behave this way. Okay, but what if that doesn't work and they do it again? At some point, do we lock them up or no? I want these answers. And I think a lot of the movement is maybe still kind of trying to figure that out, which is okay. And also the whole concept of, we don't have a new system yet. We have our current system. So if I get attacked, I'm not supposed to call the police? And this book addressed a lot of that. And then they gave examples, real life examples. Agree or disagree, it was a very interesting read. Like I said, I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I feel about all of the nuances of this movement. But a lot of it I definitely do agree with. You don't have to agree with me on that, of course. But it was a very interesting read. I would recommend it if you have any interest in this topic whatsoever. I think it's a good one. I don't do the 1 to 10 scale for nonfiction because it contains like plot and characters and like those types of categories. But if I was gonna do this on a 1 to 5, I would give this probably 4 stars, 4.5 stars, probably 4.5. I'll say 4.5 push unicorns for this one. Next up, we have the buddy read selection for my channel members. And that was The Queen's Poisoner by Jeff Wheeler. I have wanted to read this for a hot minute. This is a series that is young adult, at least to start. I don't know if it's supposed to like change over time because the main character is 8 years old in this book. I was gonna say at the start, but through the whole thing, he's 8 years old. I don't know how much he ages in the series. I don't know if the series only follows him. I'm not really sure. I will be finding out though, because I will be continuing with the series. I quite enjoyed this. It's just, fantasy, young adult fantasy. There is a king with a very negative reputation for being this scary, fearsome guy. And our main character, Owen, like I said, he's an 8-year-old boy. He becomes the king's ward, basically a hostage to ensure that Owen's parents behave in the future because they did not. And Owen's oldest brother, I think, one of his older brothers anyway, was executed because of his father's treason. So Owen is now the new ward / hostage to make sure the parents toe the line in the future. And understandably, Owen fears for his life because he knows that the king killed his brother, and others in the castle, in the palace, also fear for his life and think that, it's a high likelihood that you might be murdered. He meets some helpful people in the castle, though, including a very mysterious woman, and then a little girl who becomes a very good friend of his, including a mysterious woman who wants to help save Owen's life by tricking the king. And Owen starts to observe things going on in the castle, observe the king, and hearing different things, and he starts to learn that everything is not what it seems. And this wasn't like one of my favorite books of the year or anything, but I had a good time with it. It's a pretty quick read. I enjoyed Owen as a character. And I enjoyed his little friend, Evie. She was a lot of fun, and I really liked the kind of dichotomy between the two of them. He's this very quiet, nervous, shy, afraid to talk to adults little boy, and then Evie is just talks everybody's ear off, will walk right up to the king and be like, "Hello, sir, good morning," and like just does not care. She's always telling stories, and she's just a delight. I loved her. There were a couple of things in the plot that felt a bit weak, like weaker plot points. And I didn't know if it was because of the target audience or because, like, Owen is 8 years old, so if it had something to do with that, like, from his understanding of certain things. There was one thing in particular, though, the King's Justice, that I didn't really... There was, like, it's this meeting that is supposed to be this... It's the scheduled event, like, once per year, where people who are accused of treason or various things come before the king and this council, and they decide their fate. But prior to this scheduled event, there were 2 different characters who were accused of treason and executed just like that without this event. So I was kind of confused, and maybe I just missed something. Maybe there was like a quick explanation, a subtle explanation that I didn't get, because I was very confused. I was sitting there like, wait, I thought they had to go to the thing, the event, the meeting. But no, we're just executing them now? Okay. So I wasn't sure what the distinction was with, we can just execute you now versus you need to like have a trial before. I don't know. And I think my overall enjoyment wasn't higher simply because we were following an 8-year-old character, and that's a little hard for me to get super invested in, I suppose. Brandy, who was part of the buddy read, said that it was giving her like Farseer vibes, and I only read the first Farseer book, but I could totally see that. But if I'm comparing this to The Assassin's Apprentice, I liked this one better. I had more fun with this one, at the very least. I think having Evie there really helped because, you know, he had a really good, loyal friend, and she was kind of fun and exciting, and she pulled him out of his shell quite a bit, and I just really appreciated that, and it made it more enjoyable for me. Also, the writing style is pretty straightforward. There weren't a bunch of lines that struck me or anything like that. It was just very straightforward, but like I said, a page-turner, a quick, easy, enjoyable read. And my interest in this world and in these characters is definitely piqued, and as I said, I will be picking up the second book and seeing how I feel about that and potentially continuing on further with the series. On my 1 to 10, I gave this a 6.28, which is 3 Pusheenacorns. That's it. Those are the 2 books. Leave an emoji down below if you want to say hey. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.